We've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news first. Well, the Bluey road car restoration is going to be significantly delayed. Worse than that, it doesn't look like we're going to get to Targa High Country this year to try out for the hat trick in the 105. It's all sounding pretty bad, and it's all for one reason, and that reason is sitting under this car cover right here. So enough of the bullshit, let's get into it. First job is to remove the tiny teeny Lancia 2 litre engine that's in the back of this thing, because we've got something a little bit more fun going in there. So first thing to do is take the rear fiberglass clamshell off. Haven't done it before, got no idea how heavy it is, really don't want to wreck it, so I might drag the engine crane out and see how we go. Alright, so this goes. Well, this would be so much easier if I had friends. I don't think it's that heavy, it's just really awkward. There's always one troublemaker. Probably help. Well, I made that a lot more complicated than it needed to be. Definitely a two-man job. But it should make the next item on the list a lot easier to achieve. Now we get to pull that engine out. But first, a safety beer, because that was bloody dangerous work. So I've removed a few more things off the firewall, given it a bit of a tidy up. I can't get rid of everything yet because to do that I need to rip the interior out, and I don't want to do that yet. I just want to get this engine in and see how much work I've got ahead of me. So, to the engine. So we've got a couple of choices. We could put the original engine back in. Don't think that's going to happen. I've got this nice 2 litre twin cam 105 engine ready to go back into Bluey, but I've blown up enough of these and I want to blow up something new. We could put this single overhead cam Alpha V6 in. That would fit in there quite nicely, but I think we'll use this 3 litre Alpha quad cam V6. So let's get it on the engine crane and see what we've got to work with. First up, I'm going to lift the engine up so I can get underneath it, drain the oil out and disconnect that oil cooler. and hope no shiny bits come out in the oil. I've got no idea the condition of this motor. After that, throw the gearbox on and then start positioning it in the vehicle.
Particular size of part that will be welded. On the mechanical side of things, I mean, I'm somewhat constrained by the fact that I have such a large offset, but that was done, sort of by design. I want this offset so that when I flip the box up,
very promising.
Vertical weld.
So I've got the gearbox attached to the engine. The gearbox is off the other V6. It came out of an Alpha 155. It's a 5-speed manual box. We need to run a 5-speed because the original Stratos had a 5-speed, and as part of the rules of the competition class we're going to run in, we need to keep it as a 5-speed. I've already pulled out the diff. Unfortunately it's an open diff, but apparently you can get a few different LSDs that suit this gearbox. One of the options is out of an Alpha 75, but I believe they're very, very rare because everyone wants them for their GTV6s. The original gearbox had some sort of linkage to actuate the gears. We want to run a cable, more modern cable sort of setup, so I've already had a go at sorting out a bit of a system to run that, but we'll get back to that in due course. Additionally, you can see 3 crusty twin Del Autos sitting on top of the engine. Plan is to run side draft Webers, and that was my first attempt to see if we can get them to fit. There was a reason why they look like they're backwards at the moment, but again we'll get to that. The other reasonably large job we're going to have to do is work out how to get a distributor to run off this engine. This engine never had a distributor. We need to run a distributor for the rules because the original Stratos had a distributor, and so that's going to be a little bit tricky as well. But the first thing we need to do is get it into that ever shrinking hole in the back of the car. See how we go. What I'm already loving is how much space I've got to work around this car in my smallish workshop. This car is absolutely tiny. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, just had to do a small modification to the lifting arrangement. The belt started to slip and the engine started to tilt, so I've just added another U-bolt to lock it in. It's working very nicely now, so I think we can go for take 2. That car really weighs nothing without an engine in it. It's pretty wide. Might have to drop it down and spin her in. Might just think about this for a minute. Okay, let's have another go. Starting to think that getting this engine in with the gearbox on is not going to happen. Time for some more thinking. Alright, we might be on here. Maybe not. Okay, one more go with the gearbox still on. I've got it on a pretty crazy angle now. Let's see if the angle of the dangle solves the problem. This engine's going to be in and out of this car quite a fair bit, so I'd like to know if I can get it all in one piece. Take out. we should just put that back in. Oh, could be on here. Oh yeah, looking good. Closer than we've got before. Oh, I like it. Oh, I like it a lot. Don't know what all the fuss was about. Alright, let me organise some wooden blocks or something to try and get this into some sort of relative position. So, I've got it sitting in the hole. Now that it's in there, it almost looks like this chassis was designed for an Alpha V6. I've got it sitting in relatively the right location. The drive shafts line up with the diff and this bearing carrier. It's relatively square, it's reasonably flat according to the sump and the sump plugs, but I think the next job is to pick a few reference sort of surfaces and then maybe make up some jigs or plates to help me align the engine properly before I start fabbing up engine mounts. But now that it's in, I can have a look at some of the ancillary issues that we're going to run into. There's some good news and some bad news. I'll take you through a few of them. But first let me grab a beer. Cheers. So unfortunately, the first casualty appears to be my new shifting arrangement. I was originally trying to have one cable coming down this way, which was going to actuate the shifting forks up and down by having a pull-push cable coming out of here, but I think it's going to hit the spring now. The push-pull cable's got a really bad bending radius, like 250 mil, so it's going to bang into this spring. The other one, that does the side to side, has heaps of space, and this was the one I was actually worried about when I was first building this. It's got heaps of space to curve in and then go down the centre of the car, but yeah, this isn't going to work anymore. I'm going to have to come up with something else, maybe a bell crank, which I was trying to avoid. Maybe move this pivot across somehow, I don't know. Well, I need to have a bit of a think about that. But yeah, that's a bit of a shame because, as you can see, there's a little bit of work in fabricating that mount up. Another casualty appears to be the factory alternator. Oh, this bad boy here. It fitted into this bracket and it's hard up against that part of the chassis, so I think that's going to have to go and get replaced with something else. I mean, it's not the end of the world. This thing is bloody heavy. It's a 120 amp alternator, which is way more than I'll ever need, so I can replace it with something a lot smaller, but it obviously fitted in there very neatly, so I'll have to come up with another bracket to sort that bad boy out. Oh. So some good news is it looks like the carbies will work in this orientation. Clearly not exactly this orientation because they need to be level. I picked the wrong reference face when I made that board up. But now that the engine's here, you can see I've got a fair bit more height I can play with. So I can lift them up a little bit, get them to the right angle, and even maybe bring them back a little bit as well. So I just have to untack these runners with the angle grinder and grind off a little bit on those angles to bring them back, but that looks like it'll work well. I couldn't run the carbies, or I didn't want to run the carbies facing backwards because I think they will definitely then start fouling some of the bodywork. Also limits the area for an airbox. Over here I can make quite a nice airbox and then use some of the cows and the bodywork to bring some cool air into the carbies. But the biggest issue was this torque reaction mount was fouling the carbies quite badly, and I couldn't get them centered. And I looked into cutting this off, but then I realised that this whole cast part of the motor holds some of the cam idler pulleys, so I really didn't want to start messing with that because it's obviously a fairly structural unit. But yeah, it looks like that's going to work out quite nicely, and it means we can run side drafts rather than down drafts, which are pretty hard to find and very expensive, and we've got a fair bit of experience with the side drafts from the 105. So yeah, fair bit of work to do, but like I said, first off, get this engine in a slightly more accurate location than just sitting on a couple of axle stands.